think we are now live. So, yes, there we are. So, welcome everybody. If you joined us for our last talk, you might have had some issues with the chat box, the group chat box. So, apologies for that. We're working on a fix, but I can assure you that your questions will come in. So, if you want to submit a question, you can submit questions. If you have multiple questions, submit them all at one time. There is a possibility that when you submit your question, your chat will break. We'll still receive your question and we'll answer it, but I just wanted to let everybody know in case you submit a question, you see the chat go down. But otherwise, feel free to ask questions. Once again, welcome. This session is about taking you inside the life of a fourth-year optometry student. When we were putting together our show schedule, we knew it was going to be important to talk about the current state of affairs for our fourth-year colleagues. I think everyone would agree that the way they're entering the profession is much different than the way, I entered the profession, or really anyone has entered the profession throughout, history. But I'm excited to be joined by my good friend, Emily Seitz. Emily is a fourth-year student who is graduating, going on to do a residency in ocular disease, I believe. She's got a super popular and awesome Instagram account at iSights, Sights like her last name, check it out, where she documents and chronicles really everything and everything optometry. So Emily, thanks for joining us. We've done a lot of these together before, so it's nice to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today as we kind of talk about the state of affairs today and what it's like to be a fourth year in optometry school right now.
Yeah, we've the last one of these we did together was actually in person, so this is really our only option at this point live. So fortunately, we do have technology to kind of, rely on and to leverage. But what we really wanted to achieve with this talk and having you on was just trying to understand, what is it like being a fourth year right now, and maybe what are you doing or what have you seen your friends doing, or colleagues doing, or classmates doing to kind of in a way course correct for some of the changes and challenges that you guys are facing.
Yeah, so, the way that the rest of our fourth year was supposed to be laid out, we, of course, were supposed to be finishing the last of our rotations. And we probably had about 2 more months to go before we were done and ready to graduate when COVID kind of stopped us from finishing the rest of our externships. It kind of varies in terms of how they decided to do some course corrections. But I've kind of talked to different students from different programs and different schools, and there's kind of several things that they've put in place to kind of help us achieve that clinical knowledge. One thing they're doing is the American Academy of Optometry is offering live lectures. So some students are required to watch those really informative clinical case report lectures and write about them or just tune in live. Other things like PCO, we have two PAM style case reports, and we get those and we decide to write up a case report about treatment and management of disease of different conditions. So it's just kind of a different way of learning, but it's been really nice to just sit down and tease out one condition and feel like I really know it through and through. It's just a small adjustment, but that's kind of how we're course correcting for that clinical knowledge that we aren't physically getting in person.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice that, we do have technology to kind of help us with that. I know that, it's fourth year is very much your hands-on year, right? So you're in the clinic and you're doing the hands-on, you're kind of perfecting your skills. Fortunately, when this occurred, I guess you mostly missed out on your last rotation. So at least you did have those 3 solid rotations that you got a chance to kind of experience. But I mean, do you have any reservation or fears about kind of, man, I didn't get enough practice. I really wish I got enough practice. And I guess you're doing a residency, so I guess that's a great kind of, that probably came in handy, so to speak, right? More than ever before. But like, do you feel like some of your classmates are worried or concerned or about specifically like missing out on that last, sort of hands-on experience before jumping out in the real world?
I think that there's always going to be kind of this kind of reservation about heading into patient care, whether that ended like, 2 months early, or, you had a gap of a couple months before you start working. I think it's always going to be there. And luckily for me, like you were saying, because I'm going to be doing the residency, I'll be getting a lot more training. Yeah, I think that yes, there's probably that reservation that a lot of us have, but I do feel like we've also, in taking boards and preparing for boards and passing boards, studying and preparing traditionally in that way, I think a lot of us have chose really excellent externship sites too, and that's really fostered a lot of our learning. Yeah, I think it would have been nice to get a couple more cases in. I think what I was kind of getting to the point at in my last rotation was just independently managing conditions. If I see a condition, am I going to be able to start to finish say to myself, when do I want to see them back? What do I want to do today? Do I want to treat that pressure, or do I want to see them back for more testing? I think that's what I was really finessing kind of at the end of the rotation. So I would have liked to seen that out. Luckily for me and a couple other, students who also ended up applying and getting accepted to residency programs will continue to do that. And the rest
Yeah.
of us will continue to do that in our profession.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, having that residency now is going to be really beneficial for just kind of building in, that confidence, getting that additional experience. But, at the end of the day, too, I mean, I remember, I think, an extra rotation isn't going to really make or break your career, quite honestly. I
Right.
mean, when I graduated, I remember I graduated, obviously, I did all 4 rotations, and I got out in the real world and I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do? And I learned a lot just, just practicing. And I feel like a lot of people will, get that experience regardless. And another question I had, and just to kind of understand what you might be hearing from your classmates, and actually a question came in too from someone watching was that, you know, what does this mean? I guess 2 questions here. Number one,
Okay.
how has this affected the job market for current fourth years? Meaning, what have your classmates been saying who have been searching for jobs, have they had difficulties? And then the second question that kind of came up was, do you think employers, when this kind of all resolves, will kind of look more hesitantly on bringing a new grad into their practice, thinking that they missed out on that extra rotation, maybe they know less? I mean, any thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of really great points there. First and foremost, I tried to get a good idea of what my class was going through. Being someone that was so heavily involved in private practice club, and then to an extension, our national private practice club solution, I talked to them a couple weeks ago. We're all kind of trying to predict what the trends are going to be like. And honestly, from practitioners that I spoke to last Friday, he's at a large group practice in central Pennsylvania. He kind of wanted to let us know that he was still looking for associates. So I think really and truly the situation is going to vary depending on the practice. He let me know that not all practices, not all of his colleagues were in the same position, but they were a large practice. And so they were actually looking to use the time to really clean up some of the things that they thought they could improve in their practice and still actively look. When I polled my classmates to kind of figure out how are you guys doing with it, there were a handful that are still looking to get those contracts signed. And of that proportion, still looking for, um, the opportunities that were impeded by COVID. I heard some other stories about some students and practitioners who maybe had started talking about working something out, and then COVID hit and it kind of started falling through. So basically, from that conversation, the things that I was getting is it doesn't hurt to follow up. I think it's a really important at this point in time not to be hesitant and sit back and say, well, I'm too scared to ask them for that opportunity because of COVID. The practices that are probably doing the best and looking at it like that practitioner was from the standpoint of, we're going to use this to get better and be stronger. I think if you're willing to be the person that says, I'm going to reach out and tell them, hey, I saw you guys were working and doing a little bit of telemedicine. If that's something post COVID that you want me to continue, I would be willing to take on that opportunity. I think that's going to be the thing that'll help you stand apart from any other new grad or current optometrist that's trying to look to get back into the field.
Yeah, that's great advice, Emily. Thanks for sharing all your experience. We've got a couple minutes left, just a minute or so left, and I want to let you know that someone watching right now kind of said, it also says thanks for the advice, and they've learned a lot just getting out and practicing as well. So, last kind of question I want to run by you. Before we go here is, a current third year student has kind of said, I'm a little worried about missing the beginning of my externship in the next few months. So, it's funny because I was thinking, well, this is a fourth year thing, right? It affects fourth years, but I never even think about the third year. So,
Right.
if you had to kind of end here in the next minute or so with just some general advice you'd give to those third years who might be delayed or might not, be starting their externships on time, or maybe they're going to miss their first externship because of this, what would you tell them?
I would say the same thing I've been telling myself here. There's so many ways to show up for your patient every day. And it starts just by having a really good clinical knowledge. I know how hard it is to sit down and be like, okay, I'm reading over this condition. It's extremely boring, yada, yada. I'm probably never going to see it. You think about it every day as I might have a patient that day and might be a hero to them one day. So to you, I would say it's, oh, you'll get there when we get there. We're all going to get there at some point. Just show up every day in the small ways, trying to learn one new thing each day to help your patients in the future when that time comes.
That's great advice. And, it's funny, we did this together the first time, I think back when you were first year. And here we are, you're graduating. And it's been really great to see
Full
your
circle, full
full come
circle.
full circle. So best of luck with everything as you get out there with your residency. And for those of you who don't follow her already, check Emily out on Instagram. That's at EYESEITZ.
Hmm.
All right, I remembered after these years. Good. All right, cool. Thanks, Emily, again. Really appreciate you taking your time to, talk to us and, our community of users. So have a good rest of your day, and it was fun.
Thanks, Antonio, and best of luck to everyone. Bye.